Coming up, Facebook buys Instagram for $1 billion. Holy crap. Plus, we're talking about other stuff too, like Social Fixer and a reality TV show about Silicon Valley. Do you like it? Do you hate it? All that and bumping money up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Social Hour is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is The Social Hour with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, episode 55, recorded Monday, April 9th, 2012. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com and use the offer code SOCIALHOUR4. And by Ford, featuring voice-activated Sync App Link. Now you can control select smartphone apps with your voice, helping to keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. Learn more about the technologies Ford is bringing to its vehicles at Ford.com/technology. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Social Hour. We're on episode 55 from Petaluma headquarters. I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Amber.
Big news that just hit the web. It's absolutely everywhere. I don't know if you've noticed it in all of your feeds, but Facebook acquiring Instagram for $1 billion in cash and stock.
That is incredible. This news actually broke while I was on my my daily commute to the brick house from my house, and of course I'm listening to some show on NPR about online universities and are they going to be as good as actually going to a university on a campus. And I'm thinking, maybe we'll incorporate that into our conversation on The Social Hour because it's interesting stuff. And then I walk in and Ayaz goes, Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion. I said, oh, wow. That's a lot more interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I've been noticing at the top of all my feeds. Actually, Luke Addis, who's a fan of The Social Hour, first sent me a tweet to a post that Mark Zuckerberg had put up on Facebook. And then all of the blogs are kind of playing catch up, trying to get on top of the story. Seems like a pretty straightforward deal and lots of reactions from all the different social networks that I've been looking at. So we can share some of those later for sure.
You know what's interesting about Instagram is they're a tiny team. In fact, just to toot TWiT's horn a little bit, Amber, when you and Leo used to do Net at Night before The Social Hour even existed, every once in a while I would fill in for you if you were traveling or you were busy. And back in October of 2010 was one of those episodes. It was Net at Night episode, I think 174. Or that's what it says on the episode anyway. And we interviewed Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger of Instagram, who at the time were just a few weeks old and were kind of, they were a little bowled over by their meteoric growth. In fact, shall we play a clip?
Let's do it.
All right.
Krieger to Net at Night. Kevin, Mike, Leo, and Sarah. Congratulations on the success of Instagram. This is what you hope for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you work so many sleepless nights getting a product out there, and then when you finally get it out, Mike and I had an over-under bet of what the first day's signups would be, and I guessed 2,500. He guessed a little higher than that, and it was about an order of magnitude larger than that. And it's so exciting to see something like this come together because it really means all that hard work really paid off. And now, as we continue to grow, the work just gets harder and it gets different, but we're really excited to be where we are.
Had you guys done startups before, Kevin?
Yeah, so, Mike can talk a little bit about his background, too.
Kevin's a Googler.
I worked at Google for about, 2.5 years. Did marketing on Gmail there for about a year, and then worked in corporate development for a year. And then went to a company called Nextstop that actually shared that office you were talking about before at 650 Towns.
You're kidding.
No, not at all. So I understand that area very well, and it was not exactly the safest, right?
No.
But I was there for about a year, and at the end, I had been toying around with stuff on the weekends in the mobile browser and made something called Bourbon, which was basically going to be a cross between Mafia Wars and Foursquare. and gave it to some friends, and they ended up using it in a very different way than I had assumed. And went out and talked to some investor friends, and they said, you should just go off and do this and figure out if you can focus the experience on one thing and do it really well. And that's.
So that is actually, I mean, it's really worth going back. It's funny. It says episode 174 on the show itself, but then in our archives it says episode 211. So if you're looking for it on the TWiT website, it's Net at Night episode 211. But it's a really, really good interview because at the time they were obviously, like I said, a few weeks old. They had hit 200,000 downloads in less than a month, and they were freaking out. And it's funny, I tell the story in this episode, but they started with some sort of a product. It was a company called Bourbon, BRBN, and I had sort of heard about what they were doing, and I tried to get them on the show, and they were in stealth mode and on something else, and said, we really appreciate you reaching out, but we're not doing any interviews or anything right now, but please check back. And it was because they were working on Instagram. So it's, this is less than 2 years ago.
It's amazing. I'm just reading the TechCrunch article, and when you were saying that they were so happy that they had 200,000 users based on this article that just came out a few minutes ago, just on iOS alone, they have 27 million registered users. And as far as what's going to happen with Instagram, it looks like it's going to continue to be a standalone app, but with tighter Facebook integration. And Sarah, I'd like to just read two quick comments that I've received on Twitter and Google Plus about what people think. Rob Woodbridge had sent me a tweet saying, totally insane valuation, but to protect it from landing at Twitter, it could be viewed as a cheap buy. Kind of an interesting standpoint, because many people thought maybe this would go to Twitter or some other service, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm always uncomfortable saying something like a company is so successful that, they're obviously going to be bought by one of the big guys, because that's, not really the reason that people, well, sometimes I guess it's the reason that people start companies, but obviously it's, you start a company like Instagram because you believe in the company, and maybe it could have its own IPO one day. It's not necessarily about getting acquired. But it seemed to me from a really early stage that they really had something. I mean, it wasn't just a fad. It wasn't just the flavor of the month app type of a thing. This was a really big service. And it kind of did seem like, who's going to buy Instagram? Would it be Twitter? Would it be Facebook? Would it be Apple? Would it be Google? I guess somehow Facebook wouldn't have been my first guess. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I feel like Facebook has put so much effort into making their own photo experience better. And we've talked about that a lot on this show. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that there were almost little hints that maybe there would be tighter integration and that maybe Instagram could have a closer relationship with Facebook. But I do agree. I mean, I don't think it's really necessarily that typical of Facebook to buy something like this. I think I agree more with what you said about perhaps maybe Apple would buy it. For example, maybe Twitter. It's funny because when I'm reading through all the streams, there's also a bit of negative feedback about this on Google+. Someone just posted, Carl Kemp O'Brien said, I deleted my Instagram account a couple of minutes after finding out about this news. How long until Instagram's TNCs change, giving Facebook ownership of your photos? And I've seen that a bit. People are kind of uncomfortable with the Facebook acquisition.
Yeah, I think that's to be expected. There are certain people who just don't like Facebook, don't want to use Facebook, don't like Facebook Connect, the whole thing. So that's one class of folks, I guess. And then there's and this is really warranted, the other folks who say, listen, we've seen Facebook acquire companies before, and then that product that we like so much goes away. Friend feed is an example I always, pick out of a hat, because I used to really love friend feed. It didn't have a ton of engagement by the time Facebook bought it, but they bought the service, acquired the talent. As far as I know, they still work at Facebook, but there is no more friend feed. I mean, it kind of just went away. Doesn't mean that these talented people aren't now working on great things at Facebook. I'm sure that they are, but sometimes it can feel like, well, the big company buys the little company, and then the little company either goes away or changes to the point where some of that that original magic is lost. Mark Zuckerberg himself has posted on Facebook, I am excited to share the news that we've agreed to acquire Instagram and that their talented team will be joining Facebook. So this is, I believe Instagram has 12 people, something like that. It's a tiny little team. And so it sounds like they're all going to be going over to Facebook. So that's interesting. He also, this is a pretty long post. I encourage you to go look at it. It's a public post, obviously. He says, though, which is interesting, we think the fact that Instagram is connected to other services beyond Facebook is an important part of the experience. We plan on keeping features like the ability to post to other social networks, the ability to not share your Instagrams on Facebook if you want, and the ability to have followers and follow people separately from your friends on Facebook. That's interesting, and I wonder how long that will be true.
That's my first thought when you were reading that, is how long will they continue to do this? And I think that would be a big concern for a lot of people is, am I now going to be forced to integrate all of my Instagram photos with Facebook or log in with Facebook? Even though it's a standalone app, obviously Facebook has a vested interest in the app being more closely tied to the Facebook experience than other social networks. So, I mean, we can only hope that it doesn't happen as far as them kind of clamping down and just letting Facebook users use it. But you never know. I mean, Facebook has even admitted, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg has talked a lot about the hacker way. You know, they kind of try things, see what happens, and they're very open to changing them.
Yeah. We definitely have some spirited conversation going on in our chat room live right now. Web2610 says, Instagram users, kiss your privacy goodbye. I wonder how much privacy you feel you have with Instagram already and how it's going to change. I mean, I guess Facebook owning your photos, that sort of thing. I don't know. This is, I'm kind of still trying to process this. $1 billion is not, we've seen companies go, $1 billion now is the sort of thing you hear. You hear that companies are bought and sold in the billions of dollars now, where that would have been crazy, you know, even just a decade ago. But for such a small team, and the fact that the service is just still, I mean, it's under 2 years old. This is a young company with a lot of room to grow, and they're going to be growing within Facebook, for better, for worse.
I wonder, too, as far as monetization, you know, I'm just wondering how Facebook, as far as the integration, plans to maybe monetize those photos. I mean, that part of it gets a little bit scary in some ways, to think that all of a sudden you're really authentic Instagram photos that you've posted of some personal experience, and then just thinking about the possibilities as far as Instagram making those available in some ways to advertisers, not necessarily to sell them to advertisers, but to kind of wrap them with ad content. So, like we'll just have to see what happens with all of that. But I do, like you, understand the concern of some people.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy stuff, but certainly congratulations to the team at Instagram. They, you know, to their credit, I always hear, you always hear little rumblings, gossip, acquisition rumors, type of a thing. These sorts of things happen in the Valley all the time. Very surprised by this news. So they're probably having some champagne right about now, even though it's before noon on the West Coast.
I would be, Sarah. Let's just say that. And I don't even drink, so.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those times. It just calls for it. It calls for it. So probably this time next week, we'll have a lot more information on terms and how things might change, if they are expected to change at all. It is kind of cool that Instagram just a week ago or thereabouts had launched Instagram for Android, which is a big deal. So it's like they already had some pretty crazy news and some momentum off of that. Now to have this, I'm sure it was all timed strategically, but pretty big month for Instagram. So we'll obviously revisit this topic next week when we've had about 7 days to simmer on the news. But that was our breaking news for this episode of The Social Hour.
And maybe Instagram can teach Facebook something about the mobile experience. You know, maybe that team can come in and clean up the Facebook mobile app, which I don't think is that great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, see, that's another thing. Is like, and this almost reminds me a little bit of some of the Milk team, Kevin Rose's team, going to Google. It's like we still don't really know what they're doing there, but it's like they were building apps. They had one app that was live, and now they work for Google, and we don't really know how that's going to work. You know, it might almost be something similar. Like Instagram obviously has an app. It's a very successful app. So it's a little bit different from Oink in that way, because Oink was still trying to prove itself. But now they're working for Facebook. and now what happens? You know, it's fascinating.
Very fascinating. All right, so Sarah, are we good to go on to our next story?
I think so. Let's talk about lungs.
Yeah, this is a really fabulous story. I don't know if anyone has been following it about this young woman from Canada who was tweeting she was in the need of a double lung transplant. And she's been tweeting many celebrities for a while, asking people to donate, not necessarily to her, but also just to become organ donors and kind of fighting for the cause. She got lots of attention, including an appearance on The Ellen Show, a very heartwarming appearance. She was in the hospital while she was going on there. The good news for this young woman who is only 20 years old is that she just underwent a double lung transplant on Friday. Many people have taken to social networks to wish her the best and to follow her. And she's really raised awareness about organ donation all through social media channels, particularly through her own Twitter account. So just a really nice story about how social media has potentially raised so much awareness about this great cause and really helped a young woman who's, struggling through this really difficult time, and her family as well.
Wow. So the Twitter account was A Lung Story, obviously all one word. And then it sounds like some of the hashtags that were helping spread the word were organ donation and be a donor. Now, this is the sort of thing, Amber, that's, obviously a very heartwarming story and amazing that a double lung transplant, wow. Medically, this is a wonderful story, but you hear about this sort of stuff pretty regularly. I do anyway, where somebody is going through, chemotherapy, for example, and they're very public about it. Shani Jardin, who works at Boing Boing, comes to mind. She has breast cancer and she's undergoing treatment. There was a friend of a friend who needed a bone marrow match, which can be very difficult depending on what your genetic makeup is. And there was a campaign that a lot of my friends were participating in to try to find him one, and it was successful.
I remember that.
Yeah, so it's like you do hear about these things. And it's always like, yeah, spread the word. I can retweet. I can, that only takes a second. But I wonder why certain people, why the momentum? Is it just because the story is compelling, or the fact that the Ellen Show picked up this particular woman's story and need? She's not the only person who needs, these sorts of this sort of a support to get the right kind of treatment. It's interesting to see how the word spreads.
Yeah, it definitely is. With this young woman, her name is Ellen Campbell. She really pushed hard on all the social media channels. And I think what maybe was a little bit different about what she was doing is, again, not asking people to help her. She was just, so strong as far as the way she was talking about her situation, but instead asking for people to help other people who are in her situation. And just, again, it was all about raising awareness and not specific just to her as an individual who was in need. And so I think it touched a lot of people. And of course, all the Ellen, Justin Bieber stuff, all of that stuff is going to help a lot with this particular situation. But, when you hear about social media and you hear about, there are always negative stories about things happening in the social space, it's nice to hear something like this where you just think, wow, this is amazing how a 20-year-old individual from I want to say kind of a smallish town, but it's not that small, was able to raise so much awareness, and then people are still following along with her story.
Absolutely. Well, I wish her a speedy recovery. And again, follow or at least check out A Lung Story on Twitter. Chad's been going through some of the photos just that she's posted recently. It seems like she's having a really good time. She's got a little Facebook-like hand that she's posing in the hospital, and this is a very heartwarming story. So
definitely,
I'm glad you brought it to the table. Amber, you mentioned negative stories about the social space, and I have one actually. Well, it depends. Depending on who you are, you're either going to think that this is a positive thing or a negative thing. But for better or for worse, there's going to be a reality show about our space. Now, it's supposedly going to be called Silicon Valley. I've heard that is just a working title. It might not end up being called Silicon Valley. But a reality show it will be. This is going to be produced by Bravo, or at least run on Bravo, but executive produced by Randy Zuckerberg, sister of Mark Zuckerberg, but also has a production company of her own. She used to work at Facebook, and she's gone off to her own solo company, and now we know at least one of the projects that she's involved with, and that's this one. What's interesting about this is Bravo put together a kind of like a teaser reel of some new shows that's coming to their network over the summer. This show was just one of like 5. You know, there's a cooking show, there's a like a matchmaker type of a show, there's this show, there are a couple other ones. So, but there's it's a video. So you watch the video, and this is one of the shows where it's like, and the 5 hot entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and you see them clinking champagne glasses, and there's a quote that Silicon Valley is just like high school, but everybody's really rich, and that entrepreneurs are the new rock stars, that sort of thing. So, hey, this is a promo, right? This is obviously everybody has seen a movie trailer before where you watch it and it's a very different experience than actually seeing the movie, so these sorts of things are spun to seem exciting and wild and that sort of thing. So just because they're sipping champagne in one little shot doesn't mean that that's what the show's about, but it gives off the impression that it's like, woo, tech people are just partiers and money coming out of our noses and that sort of thing. And it really ruffled some feathers online, Amber. I mean, people were mad, at least in my social streams. They were mad that somebody was going to put together a show like this. Not only because they thought it was inauthentic, but that it gave our whole space a really bad name. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Does it make you mad?
All I would say is think back to The Social Network, the movie. When we first heard that there was going to be a movie all about Facebook, I mean, I know I, for one, and many people expressed this as well, was a little horrified. This is going to be an absolutely terrible movie, and how could they do this? And the reality was it was one of the best movies of that year and one of the best movies that has ever been made about the internet space, in my opinion. I don't think this is going to be that great of quality necessarily as far as comparing to a movie like that. However, not having seen it, maybe it satisfies that appeal or what people think about Silicon Valley and what life is like out there. But I don't expect a lot of the early adopters and technology enthusiasts to necessarily love it or even watch it, Sarah. I mean, is that really the audience? Because our community aren't really, I don't know if we're really reality TV people necessarily.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I feel about it. When I first saw, I watched the little video. I had a little, we talked about it on TNT, and I pretty much said, this is nonsense. This is just stupid. And I sort of felt bad about that later, because it's like, I know some of the people. I know Randy. She's great. She's very smart. And projects that she's involved with, I already think, well, she'll put her all into it. She has, by the way, responded to some of these accusations of sullying our good names and said, listen, it's reality TV. This is not a documentary. I understand that. This is entertaining television. But the people who are profiled on the show have stories. And just because we're talking about them on a reality show doesn't mean that they're not hard workers or don't have good ideas. And, it's sort of like give us a chance type of a thing was the message. And I totally, I'm not going to say that it's going to be a terrible show because I don't know. I think that because it's on Bravo, I have watched reality shows on Bravo in a guilty pleasure sort of a way because they tend to be very cookie cutter. It's kind of the same show over and over. It's like focus on the drama, put in a lot of weird sound effects to make scenes seem a lot more dramatic than they actually are, edit the boring stuff out, that sort of thing. So it's like, it does seem like when you say, oh, it's going to be a reality show on Bravo, it's very Real Housewives comes to mind type of a thing. It's like, do we really need something like that in Silicon Valley? But then again, yeah, what do we care? I mean, if people really, I guess I would say to people who are very, very angry that the show is getting put together, if you are actually living and working, and by the way, when I say Silicon Valley, I don't even really, it's location-wise, yeah, I mean, Silicon Valley is not that far away from where I'm sitting right now, but it's kind of the space in general. It seems like people in tech get really, really bent out of shape about not being taken seriously. But if you're working in the space and you're busy and maybe you are trying to build a brand, I mean, Amber and I are trying to make a really good show here. What do I care if someone is watching some show that doesn't accurately portray us?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my first reactions when I saw the news, Sarah, was along the same lines. But I also wondered and kind of wanted it to be about Randy. I mean, I don't know her, but my natural, my gut feeling was, oh, this must be about her. And then I read more about it, and it looks like I don't think she is in it. But I thought that would make a more interesting show than what it appears to be.
Right, exactly. I think it's interesting. People say, oh, this is going to be a terrible show. And then they pick apart the choices, of the people who are cast. Like, I never heard of any of these people. This is going to be a sucky show. It's like, well, maybe they'll be the next Instagram founders. I mean, come on, we don't know.
Yeah, who knows, Sarah?
Indeed, it is again another fascinating type of thing. Reality shows about Silicon Valley. If they never made one, then I think somewhere people would say, well, we never get any attention. People don't know what we're doing. And then they make a show, and now everybody's mad. So.
And you can never win, Sarah.
Exactly. All right, we have more news. We've got some social tips. We've got some spotlights later on in the show. But first, we want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. If you don't use Squarespace, you are missing out, because it is it is an easy and a very professional way to build a website for yourself quickly and easily. Now, it could be a blog. It could be some sort of photo site. It could be, maybe you're an avid knitter and you want to sell some stuff. You could put together a site like that. Maybe you're a video podcaster like we are, and you want a really, really cool site that displays every episode right there in the front. We're looking at a website right now. It's beautiful stuff. What's nice about Squarespace is that they have a bunch of templates. If you're new to putting together a website, it can feel very overwhelming. You might say, I have no design experience and I don't even really want to learn. I don't have time for this kind of thing. That is okay, because Squarespace has a bunch of templates that you can just start off with that are beautiful looking, absolutely beautiful. Now, if you do know some code or you like to tinker around, that sort of thing, you can absolutely customize any website in Squarespace to your heart's desire. It just isn't necessary. So don't be put off by the fact that building a website seems really difficult. Squarespace actually goes out of their way to make it easy for you. Not only do they have nice little tutorials and a great FAQ, so you can get all sorts of answers when you run into a problem or you kind of want to know how something works, but they also have really good customer support. I am a Squarespace user, and anytime I've ever gotten a little stuck on something, they get right back to me with an answer that makes a lot of sense. They'll direct me to maybe an article that somebody in the at the company had written that gives me a much better idea of how something works on the back end. It's very, very helpful. As you can see, anybody who's watching our video feed, Chad is able to just even change the layout of Squarespace just by choosing a new color or a little slider, making a blog post wider or thinner, that sort of thing. It's really, really nice. It works differently than pretty much any other website builder I've ever used. And their servers are strong. If you host something on Squarespace, you can be confident that your site's not going to go down. We sometimes feature companies on TWiT, on the Social Hour, and they get enough attention. Too many people go to their website and they can't handle the pressure. You don't want that to happen to you if you've got a really cool website. So Squarespace is definitely a service that you can count on. They recently added a couple things. Google's web font library. So they have 300 fonts now fully integrated, and they're offering free live webinar classes. That'll help you get the most out of your site. There's no use having a site like Squarespace at your fingertips and you don't even really know the power of it. It's pretty cool. Free webinars. So here's what we want you to do. If you're interested in using Squarespace, go to squarespace.com. There's a nice big try it free button. You can't miss it. click that Try It Free button and go ahead and enter your name and your email and what you want your site to be. You go ahead and create your website. Play around for a little while. Play around for a couple weeks, see how you like it, and if you decide, yeah, Squarespace is the place for me. I love my website. I definitely want to keep using it. Use the offer code SocialHour4, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. SocialHour4, that's all one word. The 4 means because we're in April. That's how that's how Squarespace keeps track of the social hour and keeps track of you. So again, try it out for free. Play around, make a website. In fact, if you make a website that you're proud of, will you email us at thesocialhour@twit.tv and show it off to us so that I can show it off next time the Social Hour sponsors our show? It'll be kind of a fun thing there. 10% off your first purchase on new accounts using that offer code SocialHour4. And thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of the Social Hour.
Sarah, I'm really happy you started explaining what the 3s and 4s and 5s
You wondered about that, didn't you?
On the code. Yes, I did wonder about that for many months, and I just let it go, and thankfully you've explained it. So it makes a lot of sense. All right, Sarah, so first up we have our social media tip. This I found on Lifehacker. I found a lot of great stuff there. Simple little thing. It's a browser extension that works on some of the biggest browsers out there. It's called Social Fixer and works with Facebook. So if you don't like the way that Facebook looks right now when you're browsing the web experience and you want to be able to modify it somewhat and make it more designed just for you, you can install this browser and then you can do things within this browser like change the font size easily. You can force the news feed to switch to recent stories first, and I think a lot of people want to do that anyway. Disable the light box. That means that that's the photo viewer, so you can change the way that works. You can hide the ticker. You can do a bunch of different things. It looks a little bit overwhelming when you do install the extension, I will say. Lifehacker has some great advice, which is to choose the minimal installation of Social Fixer. That's like the basic version of it, and it's all free. And then start modifying from there instead of having everything kind of modified from the get-go. So again, a really easy way to customize your Facebook experience.
Wow, they really have a lot of options too. They have enlarge photo thumbnail on a hover, meaning like if you hover over a photo with your mouse, with your little arrow, it'll enlarge. That's actually a plugin I use on Google Plus, actually, and I love it. It's very, very, very helpful. Just, less clicking is better. They also have an unfriend notification service, which is if somebody unfriends. If I unfriend Amber, she could figure it out, but it's not like she's going to get an email about it or some sort of alert. But Social Fixer could alert you to those sorts of things. Believe me, that there are so many little parts of Social Fixer. That's just one of them that I noticed. But I like the idea of just having different user interface options, especially things like sort by most recent stories or hide most recent activity. Depending on how you use Facebook, I mean, certain things are bound to start annoying you. Like, I really wish they did this differently. So it's definitely worth looking at Social Fixer to see if this service provides something that you've been wanting Facebook to do.
Yeah, I mean, or taking something away, because I think as over the past few months and the past couple of years, they've added more and more features, and a lot of people don't like the way that they work. So you can also kind of strip stuff out of the Facebook experience. And I would say this is good, not necessarily for everybody, but if you're a Facebook power user and you always have Facebook open in a tab and you don't like the way that it looks, this will give you more options as far as how you can customize that whole experience. So in that sense, you can give it a try. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it, and it didn't cost you a cent.
Awesome. Socialfixer.com. SocialFixer.com. That's a really good tip. All right, Amber, moving on to our spotlight. And this is about value of social data, which is always a hot topic for people.
It is.
What does it all mean?
I know. I love and hate this topic at the same time. I'm interested to find out how much a social media user is worth or their tweets are worth. And I know that sounds like a terrible thing, but I do a lot of marketing. So sometimes you need to know those things. However, I kind of hate the fact that we're looking to monetize all of these different great communities. Nonetheless, Backupify has released this infographic talking about social media and how much it's valued at as far as individual users and tweets and other things like that. kind of interesting, Sarah, if you look across the first chart, when you talk about the value per user, a Path user, they say that would be valued at approximately $12.50. A Facebook user would be valued at $118.34. And then Pinterest, Foursquare, Yelp, a bunch of different services in between. So that's kind of fun to look at this chart. And then they go down the page to talk about social currency exchange and what does it take to make $10 with social media. And they, value things like check-ins and tweets and all those things. I guess they put the most value on a Yelp review, a review of a certain restaurant or hotel or whatever it might be. Fun to look at some of these numbers and try to dissect them. But I don't think anything is necessarily 100% accurate.
Right. I also think it's kind of funny that, and I know that they have quite a few services in there, but it's like comparing Path to Facebook. It's really hard
very
because
different, yeah.
Path it's a closed network. I mean, by design, it's not as if, I don't know. That's interesting because Chad, if you go back to the infographic, like right up at the top, yeah, it's like how many users does it take, or it's actually the one above it. Yeah, how tweets, shares, check-ins, how much is it all worth? Well, Facebook valued at $100 billion. Somebody would be $118 per hour because that's just based on the company's valuation. I mean, Facebook's been around quite a bit. Well, not as long as LinkedIn. This is kind of interesting. I don't know how much it means for us, really.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean anything except for marketers. I mean, there's so many people in the social media space, and I know a lot of our listeners and viewers are social media marketers, right? They want to figure out what's going on in the space, how they can possibly monetize, what they can do with tweets from influencers and all those type of things. So I think in some respects, this helps them kind of understand those numbers and put them in some context. There are many infographics and charts like this out there, so this one is by no means perfect, but people are trying endlessly to figure this stuff out. And the reality is, to say that the average Facebook user is worth $118, I don't know what value there is in that. I think it's more valuable when you talk about the individual tweets and those, comments and those type of things. But still, you can't really put a hard value on those things, Sarah. As we know, someone can tweet something who has 10 followers and someone who has 1,000 followers, or maybe they have the most influencers in their own community. There's so many other factors, right, that are hard. It's not just quantitative, right? So that's where these can be a little bit misleading as far as the charts. Exactly.
It is interesting that the Yelp reviews have carry such weight. I tend to agree with that, actually. There are, for example, last Friday, some friends and I were going to get together and go out to eat, and it's like, okay, where do we all want to go? Let's go somewhere where none of us have been. That'll be fun. So it's like, okay, well, let's try. I had heard of this one restaurant, and it's like, all right, well, let's. I'll check the website and see what kind of menu they have. Menu looked good. We were all clear on that. And then it's like, the next thing I do is go to Yelp and see what, not only just the overall Yelp rating, but if people don't like the restaurant, why don't they like it? And is it going to be something that I'm not going to like too? Like there's something, there's such value I get from either like a really, really good review or even on the flip side, a really, really bad review, because I feel like there's something about if somebody actually took the time to write out a Yelp review, they really care about this topic for some reason, and I respect that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, it isn't that. I think that valuation was one of the most interesting things that I saw on the chart. Sarah, before we get to into our feedback for the show, I just wanted to mention a tweet that someone just sent across. This is from Mike Tabbert, and I'm not recommending that people need to do this for any reason, but if for some reason you're worried about all of your Instagram photos, he told us about a service called Instaport.me, and it's spelled exactly how it sounds. So Instaport.me, and this is a way you can export all your Instagram photos. And you can save them on your local hard drive. If you're worried and you feel like you need to do that, this is one way you can do it for free.
Oh, that's great. I mean, even if you're not worried, this is something that I've kind of been looking for just because I've got some photos that when you take a photo within Instagram, Depending on where else you sent it. Sometimes I'm like, it just lives there. You have the option to save a copy to your camera roll on your iPhone. I assume it works the same way on Android or similarly, but this would be a nice place just to have all of your Instagram photos in one place if you want to back them up or something.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for sending us that.
Thank you, Mike. All right, moving on to a little bit of a video story and a question. Effin Dunn, who's often in our chat room, thank you so much for the video in advance. A little question about geolocation do's and don'ts.
Hey, Sarah and Amber, this is Jason, Effin Dunn in the chat room. Got a kind of social etiquette question for you. My friends and I love using Foursquare as a competition, see who gets the most points checking in different places. The other night I was out with a friend of mine, we were having dinner, and we both checked into the restaurant. A few minutes later, we received a request to be friends with somebody in Foursquare who we didn't know, so we denied the request and we went about having our dinner. Apparently, the woman who requested us was in the restaurant at the time we checked in, and the way we found this out was her and her young daughter decided to go table to table checking for the people who just checked in. They were walking up to us going, are you so-and-so, are you so-and-so, asking us by our Foursquare check-in names. It was a little off-putting to have somebody approach us at dinner, a total stranger. Just want to know what your opinions were on social etiquette with regards to Foursquare and checking in. Should people be stalking people on Foursquare like that? Also want to let you know the app I'm shooting this on is on my iPad, and it's called 8mm. So thanks a lot, guys. I love the show, and see you soon.
Thank you, Jason, a.k.a. Effin Dunn. I could tell that was an app called 8mm because I reviewed it for iPad Today in the past, but I loved it. Also, you might have noticed that there was like a bird squawking in the background. He was at the zoo when he took the video. I guess the zoo wasn't fun enough. You just had to send in a social hour question, so thank you.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, for doing that. Super cool. So to his question, Amber, this does not, to me, sound like a proper use of Foursquare at all.
I don't know. It's very bizarre. I don't think that is good check-in etiquette. If you check in somewhere and notice someone else has checked in, I don't think you should walk around and ask everybody in the restaurant. More importantly, though, Sarah, I don't think that if this is a mom and she was with her kid, I don't think this is really what you want to teach a younger generation, that they should, try to almost, stalk people in person when they're using social services. So she wants to do it on her own as an adult. Hey, that's okay. But maybe not with her child. Maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah. The idea is it's like if it was a mom and he said her young daughter, so I don't know how young, but you figure like they're probably, they were being nice, and I don't think anybody was too afraid of them. But it's like, what if it was not, like a little innocent mother-child duo? I mean, if Amber and I are sitting at a restaurant and some stranger comes up to us and is like, "Are you Sarah? I saw that you're checked into Foursquare, and I'm trying to figure out who everybody is." I mean, that could really freak me out. Now, the thing about Foursquare is that you can toggle on and off if you even want your check-ins to be public. So they were doing this based on the fact that Jason and his friends may have just checked in publicly. So if I check into the TWiT Brick House, for example, I can see everyone who else is here that's public, and anybody else could see that too. If the people on Foursquare have chosen to share public check-ins with anybody else on Foursquare, it doesn't necessarily have to work that way. You can choose a higher level of privacy, but even so, it does seem like they're kind of gaming the game in a way. It's not really about meeting strangers as much as it is about knowing where your friends are.
I mean, I guess I could see how that could be fun in the sense that you just kind of want to figure it out, and it's kind of challenging. Seems like a bit of a hunt, but I think that it definitely isn't a good way to use Foursquare, and you could really turn off some people or scare some people. Mm-hmm. So I think most importantly, you want to be concerned about frightening people who think that maybe that's just a strange behavior, but at least no harm was done.
Yeah, exactly. Amber, I know that you can be wary of anything that's geolocation based. I have friends who they are technical people. It's not that they don't like, social stuff and the way that technology is able to create apps like Foursquare, but they don't want to participate because it creeps them out to the point where it's like, it's just not worth it. You know, if something happened and it was because someone had too much information on where I physically was, you know, they'd never forgive themselves type of a thing. So it's very much, you know, you can make what you want out of it, but you hear stories like this and you think, oh yeah, no.
Maybe not a good idea. I mean, I think we've talked about this so much on the show before with location-based services, but it's not just those services. It's also Facebook and Twitter. I mean, a really good thing, and I do this all the time, and I think, Sarah, maybe you've mentioned you've done it before, and I know a lot of other people do it, is sometimes, you know, if I go out and meet someone for a tea or a coffee, I don't tweet or I don't send out a picture or a message as soon as I get there. I just do it when I leave. And I think that's a really simple way that you can, you know, still have that sharing component. And then, hey, if you're leaving a restaurant and someone ends up, you know, sending out a message to you and said, hey, I'm here, come back, you know, you can go back. But at that very time when you're there and it just opens it up to like a whole bunch of strangers, I think for a lot of people it has the serious creep factor going on.
Yes, absolutely. So be careful when you check in or when you approach strangers who are also checked in. By the way, Effin Dunn works at the zoo. So
oh, cool.
I am sorry that I didn't think a little bit harder about why you might have been at the zoo. When you sent us a video, I was like, he was visiting the zoo and just couldn't help himself. But think of us. But he actually works there. Maybe he was on a break or something. That's actually a really cool job.
Great job.
You're the only person I know who works at the zoo. So thank you for sending in the video. And by the way, anybody can send us a video. We don't guarantee that we will play it on the show, but we would love to feature as many as you folks as possible. Maybe you're a little shy, but you see, you know, you could use a cool app like Jason did and send it in and tell us about it. And by the way, if you do send us a video, just upload it somewhere. Jason uploaded it to YouTube and then he just emailed me the link. That's easy because we don't want to have to open up attachments, and then you don't have to worry about sending us a video file. If you want to email us, even if you don't have a video, but maybe you have a question or a comment or something like that, you can email thesocialhour@twit.tv. That is our email address. That's our email inbox. We want to hear from you. You can also call us, 2626-SOCIAL. That's 2626-SOCIAL. It's our Google Voice number. We did get a voicemail this week, a few voicemails, but one stuck out. I almost put it in the show, Amber, but he wanted advice about online dating. And I thought, I don't know if we're the right people to ask about that, because we don't do a lot of online dating. So
maybe we could always play it, though. It's funny. I know one of our listeners used to do an online dating podcast. So we could always play it and then maybe give someone else an opportunity to reply.
Yes.
An expert, so to speak.
You're right. You're right. If anybody has either online dating tips or you know of the coolest online networks these days, if there is such a thing, I think his advice, as I recall, was I want the good online dating places with good people.
Did he say it like that? I want the good ones.
Sort of. He sort of did. Yeah, that's why I didn't make it into the show. But yeah, if you have any wisdom for us, we would love to pass along and create some love connections. Safe ones, though. Not Foursquare, stranger-related. Real...
safe love connections.
Real safe love connections.
All right. Well, Sarah, speaking of love connections, you know, there has been this meme going around the internet forever about Ryan Gosling. I first heard about it with the Tumblr site. I can't remember the name of it, but it was all about Ryan Gosling and a bunch of different photos and great little captions. Now this has gone one step further. There were 200 Ryan Gosling-themed Easter eggs hidden in New York City this past weekend. And the eggs had little messages inside of them. And they were signed from Ryan Gosling, from @GoslingEaster. Anyway, it turns out that this was a creative writer, a copywriter, who had come up with this idea to do this little Ryan Gosling Easter egg hunt, giving out tips on Twitter, but kind of fun way to keep the Ryan Gosling meme going on and exciting many women, I'm sure, in New York City.
Wow. So it was, but so it wasn't actually signed by him.
No. It was so basically, there's an advertising copywriter. Her name is Jenna Livingston. She's not connected to him in any way. She just decided to do this as a project. She's done other projects in the sort of social space. And she thought it would be a neat way to interact with people, see if something could go viral. So she hid all of the eggs with the little messages, and it continues to do the Twitter account. And, people were out looking for the eggs, including one woman who was looking for more hints, finally found them, tweeted some photos that are available on Mashable, and had some fun with it. So I always think it's interesting when you get the entire digital or online experience going offline, and you have things like this. So a different Easter for some people, I suppose.
Yeah, I would have loved a Gosling egg. I am a very big fan of his. Maybe not the biggest, but I'm definitely a big fan. What is it about Ryan Gosling that people love so much? And I very much women love him. But I mean, I think he's just like a cool dude that people like in general. He's like a meme magnet.
Oh, he is.
People love. There is a Tumblr site that comes to mind, Amber, but I don't think I can say it because it contains a profane word. But there are many. I mean, people have these sort of like devoted Ryan Gosling, almost like shrines online to him. Hey girl is one of the memes that you might not even realize is a Ryan Gosling thing. But it is now. I mean, that's how I will always think of him anytime anyone says, hey, girl, because it's just this, I don't know what it is about him. People just, it seems, I guess, for some reason, it seems like he's in on the joke somehow, so it doesn't seem like rude or mean or something.
But he also always has the same expression on his face, this sort of love, enthralled expression, right?
Yeah.
So it's perfect for something like this. What we're showing right now is the Foursquare Ryan Gosling meme. So things like, I have a level 10 expertise badge in listening. I've put you on my Foursquare to-do list. And I mean, it goes on and on and on, and people are having so much fun. But he just has that look to him.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you see him really smiling. It's more of a sexy look.
Yeah. Well, and he's also been in like the movie The Notebook, which it's not for everybody, but was a real tearjerker. Actually, it was a very good movie, and I don't even like romantic movies, but Ryan Gosling, I love the Ryan Gosling egg hunt. That's
fun.
Yeah, that is fun. That's a good meme, Amber. And kudos to the very, very creative person who put that together.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
And
good Easter weekend.
Yeah. I wonder what else she's doing in her free time. All right, before we get to Amber's Rad or Fad, and it's a really good one this week, we want to take a second, more than a second, actually, maybe like 100 seconds, maybe more than that even, to thank Ford for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. Ford features available voice-activated sync app link, which, if you're like, what is that? It helps you control mobile apps from your smartphone with voice commands so you can keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road, because the last thing you ever want to do is be actually physically being in your apps while you're driving. That's illegal, and it's very, very dangerous. So with Sync App Link, you can voice control your apps from, apps like Pandora, you want to play music, or Stitcher, Slacker Radio, NPR. I listen to a ton of NPR, and when it's NPR on my iPhone, then I've got all these on-demand shows, so I can listen to the shows I want to at any given time, but I can voice command them to start or stop, and I don't actually have to be looking down and get myself in a car wreck. Sync destinations, you can get access to navigation and directions through your smartphone, if it's compatible. On NPR, you can get breaking news, you can play your favorite programs, maybe you really like Talk of the Nation, that sort of thing. You can play that over and over. With iHeartRadio, you can use voice commands to find saved stations. You can skip songs. You can even give a song a thumbs up. You can do that on Pandora, too. So Sync App Link is built on API platform, which helps Ford and developers bring voice control in vehicles to more apps without you ever having to update App Link software in the vehicle. You don't even have to think about it. This is all going on behind the scenes. And Ford is working with a lot of developers to bring more apps like this to your fingertips, but really to your voice. So it's only going to get better from here. It's just one of the ways that Ford is really, really going the extra mile as far as technology in their cars go. It's so fun for us to be able to talk about all all the cool stuff that Ford is doing, because it's apps that we all use, and now they're integrated into Ford vehicles. If you want to know more, Ford actually has a really, really good website where they explain a lot of what they do and a lot of the cool Ford models that are coming out in the next year. They are really at the forefront of technology, so it's a good fit for us. Ford.com/technology is where you go to find out more about Sync, AppLink, and all sorts of other Ford goodies. Again, Ford.com/technology, and we thank them for supporting the Social Hour. All right, Amber. What's going on for Rad or Fad this week?
All right. So for this week's Rad or Fad, I'm going to have to rely on Sarah because I haven't been able to download this app, but I have read a lot about it, especially since this morning when there was news about it on many different news sites all over the web. It's called the Bump Pay app, and it allows you to transfer money simply by bumping with another person's phone. So you can transfer money right there on the spot using PayPal. So if you're out to dinner or you're just meeting a friend, you can finally pay them back without a lengthy process of having an IOU that lasts for a long time.
Yeah, so I'm actually, for anybody who's listening to our audio feed, I'm showing the Bump app. I'm running it on my iPad. It is an iPhone app, but as you can see, it works on the iPad just fine. And they have an Android version too. I just happen to be using iOS. But if I, for whatever reason, owed Amber $5, let's say, or maybe I owe her 50. It can be any amount you want. What I do is I just add in the total. Then Amber and I physically bump phones. I mean, you don't have to do it hard. We could even, I could have my hand here and she could have her hand there, and we bump hands. And what the service does, you might think, oh, you must need to be connected via Bluetooth or at least be on the same Wi-Fi network or sort of thing. It actually doesn't work that way at all. Bump says the way that it works, and this is amazing, is it can tell because of the friction in the phones, because both people have to have the Bump app open. It can tell, okay, so this phone in this location just moved, and so did this other phone or tablet, and I can tell that it's a connection between the two of them. So like my Bump is going up into Bump servers, and then they're saying, okay, what other device just bumped at the same time? Oh, it's Amber's phone. That's the connection I just made. So, I mean, you could say, but what if, the two other phones bumped at exactly the same time? The service would just say, do it again, because I'm not exactly sure that I have a match. But that's why it doesn't rely on Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or anything. It's actually quickly going up into the cloud and then back down based on physically how things moved, which is really cool.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, I give this a big fat rad. I think this will, be something that people can use a lot. It just, so many times, like I mentioned before, you're out to dinner or you're shopping or you're doing something with a friend or family member and you want to be able to exchange money in a really quick way. We've come a long way with things like email money transfers, which I use a lot between banks. But that's a cumbersome process, involves passwords. People often forget them. So this is super fast and super easy. So I say definitely rad, Sarah. What do you think?
I say rad as well. Absolutely. FC Photo in chat says, I just use the PayPal app to pay people. Now, this is pulling from your PayPal account. So it's sort of just the same, you're arriving at the same destination just using a different app. But as you can see, it's a nice looking, extremely simple little app. In fact, I'll show you really quickly. They put together a little video. It's like 13 seconds long of how it works. So it's like, here I am paying you $5, and there you go. So it's like, I mean, obviously no physical money is transferred. And really what's going on behind the scenes is that we would have, both had to sync the app up to our PayPal accounts. So because it has to know where's the money coming from and where's the money going. So it's just a nice, I think, kind of like a little kitschy way.
It's just fun to bump. I mean, let's not forget that will just be fun, right? There are other ways to exchange money. There are plenty of other ways to do this electronically. But I mean, wouldn't you like to be in a restaurant and be like, hey, let's bump, and I'll give you my half for the meal? I don't know. It's just so much easier than some of the other services. Plus, like you said, it's like a little, it's a little secret handshake almost, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've definitely been at dinners. This happens more and more, in fact, especially when you've got a lot of people or it's like someone's birthday. And it ends up being, okay, it's, $40 each type of a thing. And, instead of collecting money at the end of dinner, it's like someone will say, oh, can you Venmo me, or can you PayPal me, or that sort of thing. And it'd be kind of fun just to let's all bump our devices and we're good to go before we get up and leave the table. I think this is very rad.
Very rad. All right, it's a win.
It's an enthusiastic rad all around from us. All right. Bump Pay is the name of the app. Bump is, by the way, Bump Pay, which is 2 words, is its own app. But Bump, the company, has been around for a long time. And it's also a way to exchange, it's almost like a digital business card. We could bump apps. We could bump using the actual Bump app to exchange email addresses, Facebook accounts, pictures, all sorts of stuff. So really good service anyway. Seems like money is the next logical step for them.
It sure is. All right, we have a big rad on our hands, Sarah. That's always good.
Woohoo! All right, Amber. Speaking of rad, this was an extremely rad show, but like all good things, it eventually must end.
Yes, there can be too much of us. We don't want to tire people out, because that was a jam-packed show with lots of news and lots of great social ideas. And I loved the video from one of our listeners. So that was a lot of fun. Hopefully we get more of those in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Until next week, that is it for this edition of the Social Hour. Thanks to everybody who tuned in live. But if you don't watch us live, just subscribe to the show. You can go to twit.tv/TSH. It's where all of our shows live, past shows. You can find us on iTunes as well. However you want to watch or listen, we have audio feeds too. That's cool. We thank everybody for joining us every week. If you do want to watch us live, and you're not right now, Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific is when we shoot this show. Again, twit.tv/TSH is where you can find all of our shows online and all the links to the stories and apps and services that we talk about every week. All right, Amber, have a good one. We'll see you all next week on the Social Hour.
Thanks for watching.